It is Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. Really, I am. I almost forgot who I was. That's Wade Neely. We are coming to you from the Lee Company studios, our respective homes, and happy to be here with you for the next couple of hours talking sports of local, regional, and national importance. So it's going to be a lot of fun, and happy hump day to all who participate. Wade, happy hump day to you.
Happy hump day to you, and good to be with you on a Wednesday here. We got a lot to tap into. A lot has happened. A lot still going on. And, we're smack dab in the middle of playoff week one of the high school playoffs rolling around here.
Absolutely. We got a lot going on. In fact, I try to do this at the end of the show in our final segment, but we get so into Wild and Wacky Wednesday that I tend to forget. 5 o'clock, we wrap up at 4 right here on Main Street Sports Today, but you can grab you something to drink, grab you a snack, and come back for the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show, hosted by me and Wade, as we talk high school football across Giles, Lawrence, and Murray counties. And so be sure and tap into that at 5 o'clock. It's a lot of fun if you like high school football. Maybe not so much if you don't. I'll give you that. But we enjoy it.
And I would venture to say, for tuning into this show, you're probably
a high school
football fan
to some degree. Yeah, absolutely. So be sure and check out the Southern Middle Tennessee High School Football Show Wednesdays at 5 o'clock through the conclusion of the postseason. We will be with you. So check that out. Yeah. Lot to talk about here over this next 2 hours, though, as we again talk a little pro basketball, a little pro football, a little college basketball, a little college football. In the second hour, we will be joined by our NASCAR analyst, Heather Williams of WCYB out of Johnson City. The championship 4 field is set following this past weekend's race up at Martinsville, Virginia. She'll talk to us about that race and this race. So looking forward to checking in with Heather as we always do. And I'm sure she'll be pumped for her still undefeated Chiefs as well. In the next segment, we will be joined by Joe Sullivan of Main Street Media, talking a little local college basketball hoops on the men's side. We had one team with a particularly big win to open the season on Monday night, and I'm sure we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about the game Wade and I saw Monday over at Murfreesboro, and we'll see what else Joe wants to get into. So lots of local college hoops to talk about, lots of NASCAR to talk about. There's some Major League Baseball developments, even though it's out of season. I think their general managers meeting is going on down in San Antonio this week, and there's some news coming out of there. And depending on who you are a fan of, it may not be good, but we'll talk about that later in the show as well. Yeah. So a lot to get to again. And it is Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Wade and I will wrap up the show with the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. So stay tuned for that as well. Always fun. Let's go ahead, Wade. The rundown is not what it has been or what it will be. It's a little slim, actually, but we should probably go ahead and get into yesterday's result and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the rundown.
Because the rundown is a short one today, but we do kickstart things with women's college basketball. And Tennessee opening up its season with a nice victory. They defeated Samford 101-53. Good start for Coach Harper and the bunch. And then as you kind of roll in, Tennessee putting up triple digits, knocking off Samford, hitting a lot of threes, playing pretty well in their season opener.
Yeah, I think that's the way Kim Caldwell is going to want to play. Yeah, that's the way she's going to want to play. Was able to achieve that against Samford. We'll see how well they are able to replicate that as the season progresses. Women's basketball this evening, 6 o'clock. over on the Lipscomb University campus, it's the Lady Devils of Mississippi Valley State coming in, taking on the Lady Bison. Again, that's a 6 o'clock tip. You can see it on ESPN Plus. At 7 o'clock, also on ESPN Plus, the Lipscomb Bisons, the men, are at Fayetteville, Arkansas, taking on John Calipari's Razorbacks. Again, 7 o'clock. You can see that one on ESPN. Lipscomb at Arkansas at the Bud Walton Arena. At 6 on FanDuel Sports South, the Nashville Predators are on the ice against the host Washington Capitals. And at 7 o'clock on FanDuel Sports, it is the LA Lakers coming to the FedEx Forum, taking on John Morant and the Memphis Grizzlies. Ladies and gentlemen, that is your rundown. Your top story brought to you, as always, by the fine folks over at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m., as well as their hand-cut meats. And everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. It's never good when athletes decide to make physical contact with journalists.
Or anybody that's not an athlete, I guess.
Well, or with athletes, maybe, I don't know, but certainly
off the court of play or field of play, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Joel Embiid kind of had that reinforced yesterday when the National Basketball Association announced that he would be suspended for 3 games after shoving a columnist, specifically Philadelphia Inquirer columnist Marcus Hayes, in the 76ers locker room following the Sixers' loss to Memphis, 124-107 on Saturday night. Embiid did not play in that game, has not played yet, I don't think, but apparently he took exception to a column, again, written by Hayes of the Inquirer. The column criticized Embiid for missing games. Again, he hasn't played yet this season, but it mentioned Embiid's late brother, Arthur, who died in a car accident 10 years ago, and Embiid's young son, who is the namesake of his late brother. Apparently, that really kind of drew Embiid's ire that their names were invoked in this article. Next time you bring up my dead brother and my son again, you are going to see what I'm going to do to you, and I'm going to have to live with the consequences, is what Embiid told Hayes on Saturday night. Hayes tried to apologize. Embiid did not accept, later said that he doesn't care what reporters say. Hayes said, but you do. And not long after that, Embiid pushed Hayes on his shoulder, according to other journalists that were on hand for the confrontation. Public relations staff members of the 76ers kept it from going any further than that. But family is kind of off limits. Hayes might have overstepped, but violence is never the answer. I don't know. I say that a little tongue in cheek, but at the same time, in all seriousness, you got to try to remain professional about the whole thing. Whether Hayes did or did not overstep, you just can't do that. And Joe Dumars, executive vice president of the NBA, said as much. Mutual respect is paramount to the relationship between players and media in the NBA. While we understand Joe was offended by the personal nature of the original version of the reporter's column, interactions must remain professional on both sides and can never turn physical. The article has since been edited to remove those personal references, but apparently that didn't quite placate Embiid, and so we got what we got. Again, The Sixers are 1-5. Embiid has yet to play as left knee management is ongoing. His suspension will commence with the next NBA regular season game for which he is eligible and able to play. So once he's able to play, he's got to sit 3 games. And apparently that will start tonight in LA against the Clippers. So don't look for Joel Embiid on the floor for this matchup with the Clippers or their Friday game against the Lakers or their Sunday game against the Hornets. That would allow him to return, if that timing holds up, for next Tuesday's 76ers matchup with the New York Knicks. That'll be Philadelphia's 10th game of the season. Again, if this holds up. So
yeah, and obviously this is not a great situation for either party.
Mm-hmm.
Hayes, especially now that those references have been removed. I mean, it did kind of strike a personal chord, and without having read the original column, I don't know to what degree, but enough obviously that Embiid was pretty upset, and so that's obviously not what you want. Obviously, Embiid wanted to get the season off to a better start. They had also missed Paul George for the first 4 or 5 games this year. So I mean, they've really kind of been floundering the Sixers. So it is not a good situation and kind of a disastrous start for a franchise and for a player that has kind of gone through a lot of scrutiny in regards to his availability and kind of what he's been able to do for them in the postseason.
Yeah. And with Embiid and with George, you're talking about 2 guys who have had, some health issues over the course of their career. So, trying to get them back on the floor is kind of paramount for that 76ers team as they try to mount a challenge in the East to, the Celtics and to the Knicks, among others. And so
the Cavaliers, man, still undefeated.
How about that? Behind former Brentwood Academy guard Darius Garland.
By the way, speaking of which, heard a story about him. He missed a lot of time last year with a jaw injury. And from what I've heard, and I don't know how this wasn't really, maybe it was and I just missed it or we just missed it, but with that jaw injury, he shrunk down to basically his high school weight, or maybe even lighter than that from ball accounts. And so the fact that he was able to bulk back up over the offseason, he's been playing great. They've been playing great.
Well, it's funny that you say that because I was out getting something to eat, I guess maybe last Friday after my ball game, and the Cavaliers were on, or Cavaliers highlights were on. I don't pay a whole lot of attention to the NBA, but I looked up and I saw him and I thought, man, Darius has gotten kind of thick since Brentwood Academy and Vanderbilt. I mean, he was so young then. And so the fact that, like you said, he lost a lot of bulk as a result of that injury and seems to have gotten it all back because he certainly looks NBA ready right now.
Yeah, they've been thriving. And on the other side, I kind of sympathize with Marcus Hayes because I've been up close to Embiid in a locker room, and that is the wildest. I've never, interviewed Shaq or some of the other real behemoths we've seen in the league, but Embiid has a mixture of height and width it blew my mind. And you're used to seeing guys that are that big, and they're usually long, they're usually lanky. Embiid is long and lanky, but he's also absolutely thick. And so I don't want to be the guy that's going in and writing that. My microphone was trembling just being in his presence almost. So, I mean, I can only imagine if you've kind of, gotten personal.
How did you manage to be in Embiid's presence?
The Grizz they came to see Memphis a couple years ago. 2 years ago, good friend with their play-by-play voice, Kate Scott, longtime radio friend, and got to meet with her and catch up. And, then after the game, that was during, spoiler, during one of the lulls where the Grizzlies were decimated with their own injuries. So I said, let's just pop in and see what the visitors have going on. And so he is a massive, massive dude. And like I said, I would not want to be on his bad side. But, Hayes has got some points when he talks about his availability has just not been there.
Right.
Probably could have gone about the column in a different way. And like I said, I didn't get to read the original piece before some of that stuff was redacted. So it's hard to say, but man, he's got a point when you're talking about a guy, they institute the rules now where you have to play 75 games to be eligible for awards. And Embiid basically puts himself out of the running every single year now. And this is a former MVP we're talking about, but he's basically no longer eligible for the award because you're anticipating he's going to miss so many games.
Right. And, the NBA has kind of done that, I guess, to kind of address some of this load management that teams take part in and guys just taking nights off for whatever reason. And it's unfortunate that it takes that to get guys on the floor, but it's an 82 game season. Maybe that is a little long. I don't know. It's a whole thing. And so it's unfortunate that things went down the way they did between Hayes and Embiid. I think you gotta kind of know where the line is as far as what you can write about somebody and what you can't, and in invoking and involving family members and that kind of thing probably crosses a line. And I would imagine that Hayes would probably tell you that at this point as well. So hopefully, bygones will be bygones in that situation, because Embiid's not going anywhere, and I don't imagine Hayes is either. So
yeah, maybe this will have a peaceful resolution like we saw with the Cowboys a couple weeks ago. By the way, I did have to point out that Grizzlies fan to me is compelled to remind everybody that Jaren Jackson Jr. blocked Joel Embiid to win that game. Embiid was driving for the game-winning dunk, and Triple J said, "Not on my watch." So I was just compelled to point that out. So,
well, there you go. All right, hey, let's go ahead and take a break here from the Lee Company Studios on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return, we will be joined by Joe Sullivan of Main Street Sports. Talking a little local college basketball. Stay tuned. Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
Step into the Lionel retail store at Opry Mills, Nashville, and you'll be captivated by all the magic of the 123-year history of Lionel trains. Whether you're already a train enthusiast or just getting started, Lionel will energize your love for trains. NASCAR fan? Come check out your local Lionel station to learn all there is to know about model trains and die-cast NASCAR collectibles. Visit nashville.lionel.com or call 615-455-9399.
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
He shoots, and he scores!
Wild and Wacky Wednesday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Wade Neely, coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. And we are joined now by Main Street Media of Tennessee's local basketball writer, Joe Sullivan, former sports editor of the Boston Globe, who's now joining us to talk a little men's basketball. As the season opened this week, Joe's got an article up on the Main Street Media website. All of our local teams, our local Division I teams, picked up victories on Monday. And none probably more impressive than Lipscomb's 77-72 win up in Pittsburgh against Duquesne. First of all, Joe, good afternoon. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Great to see you guys. And Lipscomb's victory, not as close as the score indicates. Lipscomb really dominated. They had bigger leads. They were up at least 16 at one point. They just really took it to them. And they were missing a starter. You know, Dylan Faulkner, their sophomore center, who the day I saw them practice was their best player, is out with a sprained ankle. And they need him. They could really use him tonight, as we'll get into that, I'm sure. But Jacob Agnatovic, who really hasn't played in a year and a half, a season and a half, but because of injuries, had 30 points, 10 rebounds, and Duquesne could do nothing with him. He just really dominated. He's a terrific offensive player.
That's pretty wild. And tough debut for Duke's coach Drew Joyce, whose claim to fame prior to this was being the high school teammate of one LeBron James. So, a tough night for him in his Duquesne coaching debut there, but a huge win for Lipscomb, again, going on the road and picking off an Atlantic 10 opponent there.
Yeah, and I'll go into the weeds for you here, Mo. Drew Joyce is a pretty good player at Akron. But you're right. I mean, his connection to LeBron James is large. But I don't know who gave me advice to play Lipscomb in his first game, because Lenny was having difficulty finding games, because I think coaches out there knew that they would be dangerous. And now tonight they're at Arkansas, because to play Arkansas, and Lipscomb needs these games where they're going to get we call them buy games. That's B-U-Y, because they need the money and to help the athletic department.
And they don't have a football team, so somebody's got to do it, right?
Exactly right. So they're going to play 5 of these, and so they're all on the road. They're all against opponents that they might be underdogs to, and so tonight they have Arkansas in John Calipari's first game as the coach at Arkansas, and I guess Lenny wouldn't care that I shared this with him. At one time, as they were negotiating when they were going to play the game, Calipari said to Lenny, "I'm not going to play you in my first game, Lenny," because he knows Lenny and he's aware. And Lenny sometimes goes off the record on me, but I think that's a funny story. But then, and Calipari, I guess to his credit, is doing it. And plus now Lipscomb's played a game.
And you feel like Lipscomb can be a dangerous ball club, but you also feel like John Calipari's debut over there at the Bud Walton Arena. I tell you, I have been in that building, and when they get to calling those hogs with a full bowl of fans in there, it can get really intimidating. I saw UT get down 16 early over there one night, like 16-0 down, and never recovered. I don't know that that'll happen to Lipscomb, but when those people get into it, that can be, as Wade likes to say, a raucous environment, to say the least.
Wade took ownership of the word raucous. Is that
trademark?
Yes, that's Wade's word. Absolutely. But
hey, how big? Real quick, Joe, what kind of dollar figures are we talking about for that Duquesne game? Is that out anywhere?
I don't know.
I assume Arkansas is going to be bigger, obviously.
Yes, right. So I would imagine. I'm guessing that Duquesne they'd be big half as much as Arkansas. So you might be talking like 50 and 100, something like that. Those are guesses. I don't think I'm far off, but in that neighborhood, and it's. And to get the Arkansas date, they have to fly from Pittsburgh to Fayetteville, Arkansas, and Lipscomb's not chartering a plane. They're going to have to switch. Well, they already did it. They're going to switch planes twice. I assume they're flying to Chicago from Pittsburgh, and then Chicago to Fayetteville, or Dallas and Dallas to Fayetteville. But it's 2 flights to get there, and I guess their coach, poor Jacob Ignatovic, all 6'9" of them in that coach seat. I don't know. That's got to hurt, doesn't it?
Yeah, no exit row would be killer for him.
Joe, you mentioned in your season opening wrap up here that, again, all of our local teams had wins on Monday, not all on Monday night. Besides Lipscomb, whose were you most impressed with?
Well, I think you have to be Vanderbilt. I'll just say that the Belmont, Tennessee State, and Middle Tennessee games were really glorified exhibitions, even though they're regular season games. Vanderbilt hosting Maryland Eastern Shore from the MEAC, not a formidable opponent, but we've seen what has happened in the last few years when Jerry Stackhouse was the coach, that Vanderbilt was not able to take care of business in these games. Not only did they not, they just blew them out, 100-63. It was really an impressive offensive performance and defensively. And they only had one turnover in the whole game, and they out rebounded them 48-24. That's what they should do to them.
Right.
It's Mo, you're as old school as it gets, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it's fair to say.
So I'm really curious about your opinion about Mark Byantine listing every player on the roster as a point guard. Did you know about this?
I had heard, I saw something on Twitter that everybody was introduced as a point guard, and now I'm looking at your article bearing that out. Is that how they're listed on the roster? Is everybody?
That's how it's listed on the website on the roster. Everyone's a point guard. And Chris Freeman with a good sense of humor. Chris. The PA announcer at Memorial Gymnasium, and he went right along with it. At point guard, 6'10", Jalen Carey, excuse me. So he went along with the joke, and it's kind of funny.
Well, apparently, and 9 different guys had assists, so maybe everybody is a point guard, huh?
Well, I think that's what he wants to get that mindset involved. I mean, it's the most impressive offense player was Devin McLaughlin from the 6'7" kid from PC, 10 for 10 from the field, 24 points, 10 rebounds. And he's going to be a nice player for them. Now, but when they get into the SEC, this is what we have to see. This is great. They should crush Maryland Eastern Shore, and Devin McLaughlin should kill them. But when they get into the SEC, he's 6'7", he's not 6'8", he's not 6'9", he's not 6'10", and he's their power forward. And how's that going to translate? Hey, he might have the fight in him and the strength to still play as well as he did Monday night. So I think it's going to be one of the intriguing stories of the season.
Wade and I were at that MTSU Oglethorpe game on Monday morning, and
I heard you guys screaming.
I was singing Taylor Swift at the top of my lungs, actually.
It was quite loud. We've talked to Chip, and then we saw it firsthand. This is going to be a deep MTSU team, probably the most depth Nick McDevitt has had. And, given some of the injuries that they've dealt with in the past and other lack of depth, depth kind of cures a lot of ills, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I think you're right. I think he's certainly going to coach it that way, and hopefully it'll fulfill his expectations. And I look, Justin Porter was great. Again, it's a D3 opponent. Mo, I have that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Justin Porter, I love this. He was their leading scorer. What do you have? I'm looking at my notes here. I got to make sure I get it right. He had 20, but no assists, no turnovers. So Justin had one thing on his mind Monday morning, and that was scoring points. And that's good to see. That hey, if he can do that, that's tremendous. Cameron Weston back from the torn ACL, looked good. Made all 5 of his shots. Had 7 assists. This is all with the caveat that we know what the opponent is not the same. One thing I'll give you one thing to look out. And Nick told me about this when I went to see them practice. Is Torrey Alston, this redshirt freshman. Now you guys watched the whole game. I only watched the first half. 6'7", 6'8", like a pencil thin.
Mm-hmm. But jumps out of the gym.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and very interesting player. And he had a good game. What, he had 13 points, 10 rebounds, and he had a double-double, and the transfer from TCU, who had played at Coastal Carolina before that, Issam Mustafa, also had a double-double, and they're going to need both those guys to play like that in the middle to, give them something in the middle to go with, like you said, JP and Weston and some of those other guys around the perimeter. But for one game, at least, it was fun to watch. Now, how they can maintain that going out to Abilene Christian this weekend and then Evansville and Murray coming back, we'll get a better feel from them here over the next 3 games, I think. So on the negative side, Kamari Lands is really supposed to be a standout player for him. He was just, he didn't have a great game, right? I mean, this is a kid with enough talent to be an all-league, and we'll see.
Yeah. Nice little neighborhood brawl between Tennessee State and Fisk over at the Gentry Center on Monday night. TSU taking care of the Bulldogs 96-66. But again, as you said, Fisk is a D3 program. TSU is expected to be certainly in the top half of the Ohio Valley Conference. And we've talked at length about Penny Collins having to just reconstruct this roster. And again, for one night, it looked pretty good.
Yeah, and this is a great game. They should play this game. That so many neighborhood or city opponents avoid each other. Tennessee State and Fisk are never going to do that. I think this is a game that's locked in every season, and I think that's good. I mean, if it's good for Fisk. They're probably never going to win, but it's good. I think the eye-popping thing for me at Tennessee State was a player named Ronald Jessuby, who's I think about 6'8" transfer from Mount St. Mary's. Now, Mount St. Mary's is, a middle-of-the-road MAC team, and he didn't do a lot there, so I wasn't expecting much. But Penny loves this kid. I could tell a few times I've talked with Penny about him. And when I was at their practice, he didn't seem to be in the first unit, this kid, but he did a couple of nice things that day when I saw him. And then suddenly he starts, and he has a fantastic game. I mean, I got to look down. 23 points, 14 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 blocks. So this is the coach's pet, and we'll see how it goes from here. So obviously he's starting now, and kind of an athletic kid. It's I got to say this one thing about Penny's group. We know nothing about them really as players, most of them. But they're a nice group of kids. I'm calling them kids. They're men, of course. When I was over there, it was just really fun to talk to them. They're some really good personalities on that team.
Real quick, Joe, give us an update on Belmont clobbering Maryville. But, I'm curious your thoughts. What did you take away from that game?
So they didn't start very well. They were trailing for a lot of the first half, and then they just talent won out. I think the biggest news out of there was that Carter Witt, their point guard, did not play with what is termed a lower body injury. So that sounds like something the coach of the Calgary Flames would say.
Hockey reference,
coach.
yeah.
Very, very hockey-ish, yeah.
And Greg Sage, who's the PR person over there at Belmont, a great guy. He texted me. I said, "What's the injury?" And he said, "Lower body." And I said, "How low?" I almost got Mo there with a spit take. And he texts back below his waist and above his toes. So that was I tried, but I couldn't get it in. So look, I'll be there Friday night when they play Furman, and he'll come out in a boot or something, or have a brace on his knee, and then we'll know. I mean, it's just because I haven't seen him that I don't know what the injury is.
You've got a kid. What? You've got a line in this Belmont Maryville wrap-up. Notable for the game was the three-point shooting from Isaiah Walker. He of the unusual-looking shot. Your assignment for next Wednesday is to bring us video of Isaiah Walker's shot. Because
you see it, Mo, and you go, my God,
it sounds like it kind of defies description.
It is a horrible release. It's just you think none of them are going in. And the practice I was at the team they were scrimmaging a lot, and I was sitting there with Greg and Joey Dwyer. Everyone knows Joey, the writer for Rivals and covering Vanderbilt. And I said he made another shot. He's making 3-pointers with that shot. Look, another one went in. They both told me to stop it. But then in this game, he does it again, and it's like the ball. Well, I'll get you a video, but it's like it comes down from his waist. Is where he pushes it up like that. You should be shooting your jumper from up here, and his comes up like that. It has this really rainbow arc. None of them look like they're going in. Look, he brings other things to the team. Casey Alexander loves him for the intangibles. He's a leader. He's the captain, so he brings other things to the table. But he did shoot well the other night.
Is his shot more or less unattractive than Bill Cartwright's?
I'm going to tell you, it's worse. It's worse.
It used to hurt me just to watch Bill Cartwright shoot, to be honest. Joe Sullivan,
he's a good kid too.
Joe Sullivan of Main Street Media joining us here on Main Street Sports today, talking a little local basketball. Joe, I knew we would be remiss if we did not mention while we had you on. Larry Nerd sustained a ankle injury in St. Louis's opener. I guess they lost to Santa Clara, and he's going to be out for a couple of weeks. Robbie Avila is.
I saw it. He drove to the basket and landed on another guy's foot, and went down for the count. And he had hurt his ankle in practice earlier, so I think this is a recurrence. And so they're gonna sit him out for a while. That doesn't bode well for them. I think they're going to get off to a slow start. Not sure about they have Isaiah Swopes also from Indiana State who played pretty well the other day. So they still have him, but without our boy Larry Nerd, I think St. Louis might be get off to a slow start. But he's still our guy, Mo.
Absolutely, 16 points, 5 boards, 5 assists in 29 minutes before the injury. So I mean, he was certainly having an impact, and probably had an impact in him in the eventual 85-78 loss. So
yeah,
that's tough for the Billikens, but we knew that you would want to weigh in on that as well. What's besides Lipscomb, Arkansas, what's big for our local teams between now and when we will see you next Wednesday?
Well, I think I'm really looking forward to that Belmont game Friday night against Furman. We'll see them against a real opponent, and whether Carter Witt is back or not, I think is going to be critical. One thing, have we touched upon this, Mo? So when he recruited Carter Witt, Casey Alexander told him that his vision for Carter would be that he could lead the country in assists. He thinks he's that good of a playmaker. And I said, well, it's putting a lot of pressure on him. And then that's what Casey said. It's the vision I have for him. I'm not saying it's going to happen. And then I asked Carter about it, and Carter said he embraces it. That's his almost a goal for him. He's going to try to do it. That Carter feels there's enough shot makers, including Isaiah Walker, on this team that he can find them for open shots that they'll make, and he'll get assists. So he's really critical to this team. I really hope he plays Friday night. If he doesn't, I think then we'll really, I don't know. The result's going to be important as Belmont develops as a team, I think.
Yeah.
Joe, I got to ask you, my Michigan Wolverines clobbering Cleveland State 101-53. Dusty May rolling. Our Yale transfer Danny Wolf had a double-double. Tell me why Michigan doesn't go undefeated this year under first-year head coach Dusty May. I can't find a reason right now.
It's that, what's going to kill them is that West Coast road trip in the Big Ten. That they'll strip up there. That's what'll go.
Make a trip out to USC and Oregon could bring them back down to reality. Yeah. I guess you're right.
That's right.
Look good, Don. I am curious, what else maybe caught your eye? Mo and I briefly touched on Texas A&M went down. They got the first court rushing of the season at UCF.
Yeah, Central Florida. That was surprising. But Texas A&M, I just perennially overrated, in my opinion. We saw them lose at Vanderbilt last year. I just never was impressed last year, and so I guess I'm not totally surprised that happened. Not saying I predicted it, but seeing the result, I'm not that surprised. I'm trying to think there's something else. I really was concentrating on our 5 local teams. Nothing popping into my head right now. That's disappointing. I'll be better prepared next time.
Well, that's good. That means you're dialed in. That means you're dialed in on your assignment. We appreciate that.
Absolutely.
I was watching other games. I was watching. I did see that St. Louis game and a little bit of Southern Illinois because of scouting for Belmont. We'll see. Southern Illinois has a nice guard transferred from University of Texas, Rio Grande Valley. Elliott is his last name. He had a hell of a game in opener. So Southern Illinois might be better than we thought. This is what we're going to have to do. Like, what's Southern Illinois got? We got to see a couple of games before we know how the Valley's going to shape up.
Yeah, no doubt. Joe Sullivan of Main Street Media joining us here on Main Street Sports today, talking a little local hoops as he will every Wednesday at 2:20. So set your clocks, set your alarms, come join us. Joe, we appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Awesome.
All
Thank
right.
you, Joe.
When we continue here on Main Street Sports today, following this break from the Lee Company Studios, we'll be talking a little football, specifically Southeastern Conference football. So stay tuned after this.
Do you want to be a bad man? Yeah, you do. Do you want to taste sweet salvation underneath the summer moon? Do you need another hand now? Yes, you do. Go see Miss Josie down on Columbus Avenue. All right, Columbus Avenue.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
So Busy Bee is a very close-knit family. We fight just like every family does. We have arguments, but we always come out with a solution to the problems. We don't just fight about what we want, we fight about what customers need. We want to make sure that every customer we go to is more than satisfied. And that doesn't just start whenever we show up at their door, that starts when we show up every day at work. We want to make sure that we are serving our customers to the best of our ability.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Wild and Wacky Wednesday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. And Wade, the first college football playoff rankings came out last night. No real shock that Oregon was number one in those. But with Oregon 1 and Ohio State 2, it kind of creates a little bit of a dilemma because they're both from the same conference. So Ohio State, despite a number 2 spot in the rankings, is projected as a number 5 seed in the playoff bracket, which they unveiled their first bracket as well. And I mean, this is something that we kind of warned about a little bit, that the rankings would not mirror the bracket seedings because they can't.
Yeah, there's only so much that it can mirror, but interesting rankings, and kind of like we were all wondering. I guess everybody was kind of wondering, yesterday, how would the show look? How would things kind of get rolled out? And they did it in reverse fashion, and props to ESPN for not making us wait terribly long, kind of like March Madness with multiple commercial breaks. So once they got rolling, they kind of kept it rolling. And then finally you get into, the last couple of teams that are left out or, on the bubble, so to speak. And then we get into it. But yeah, to your original point there, Ohio State, who on paper has maybe the best win in the country and also the best loss in the country. So it kind of makes sense, they end up number 2. But yeah, if the season plays out just the way paper has kind of played it out, you have you have Oregon going over top of Ohio State in the Big Ten title game, and therefore OSU, not being the conference champ, has to settle for that home game in the first round.
Yeah. Meanwhile, BYU gets the benefit of being the best team in maybe a not great conference. The Cougs are ranked 9th, but are projected as the Big 12 champion right now, and thus they get that 4th bye, I guess, in the opening round of the playoffs as a number 4 seed. So there's that. And I mean, again, the way it's set up, somebody was going to get that, I guess. I mean, in a perfect world, your top 4 would be your region champions, and they would all play that way, but that's not necessarily been the case.
Yeah, that's what makes the last couple of weeks so crucial, and what's going to make especially championship weekend, so compelling. Because on one hand, you may sit there, and if you're left out of the championship game, you're thinking, okay, well, if we had an extra loss, maybe that hurts us, and maybe we get eliminated somehow. But obviously, if you don't go to the championship game, you don't win it. You're not eligible, for that berth straight into the quarterfinals. So kind of a lot of interesting things at play. And BYU right in there. Colorado is still technically alive in the Big 12. That will be a really fascinating way, because they still have a path to work their way into the playoff. I think they were ranked, 20th or 21st?
20th. They are
somewhere,
20th.
Yeah, somewhere.
They
in
are
the
one
low
spot
20s.
ahead of Washington State of the Pac-2, by the way.
Pac-2, no love there. They lost to Boise State. Otherwise, we'd be maybe talking about them getting in. But, so BYU, they have really, really taken care of business, but they've also had a couple fluky games where they've really been outgained, and they've just relied on kind of turnover luck. But that all goes into what makes a good team, and they're taking advantage of what they've got. So they settle in at that number 4 spot in the initial rankings.
Boise State
projections.
Yeah, Boise State is top 12 in the rankings at number 12. So it's kind of nice to see the group of 5 not necessarily benefiting from being a group of 5 team, but actually being in the mix, earning their way into the mix. The Broncos again are projected as a number 12 seed. So there didn't have to be any gerrymandering or anything like that to get them in there.
Yeah, and what helps them real quick is, they got the close loss to Oregon early in the season. Then obviously the win we just mentioned a moment ago versus Washington State. But after that, it kind of falls off a cliff, right? Because the only other team that was ranked was Army, who is at 25th. And they'll have a chance. They'll get a crack at Notre Dame, which will be a very fascinating game for both sides of that equation coming up in a couple of weeks. So Boise has kind of made it nice and neat for now. But if they randomly slip up here in the next week or two, things won't be quite as cozy or quite as cookie cutter, I don't think, thus far.
Sure. Yeah. We've been talking about Indiana a lot on this show. The Hoosiers are ranked number 8 in the CFP rankings. They are the number 9 seed in the projected bracket and would match up with number 8 Tennessee if that were to hold up. And that would be a intriguing matchup, I think, with the winner playing Oregon.
Yeah, and that was the other real question, right? At least for me last night, was where do you rank Indiana? We even speculated yesterday, would they get ranked? I think they were probably in the top 12, but they still now sit behind one-loss Penn State. And, they will have their chance. Their schedule has been very weak compared to the rest of the Big Ten, but they will have a chance to get in there. But as it sits right now, they got a little love. They probably didn't give it as much love as they want. And them versus Tennessee in the first round, at least on that initial projection, seems on paper like a pretty juicy matchup. I know Tennessee's obviously got an elite defense, but, I could see the over-under on that one being about 1.5 million points because that would be one in terms of offensive firepower that could move the needle. So they got a little love, maybe not as much as they had probably initially hoped, but they still got work to do.
SEC and the Big Ten each have 4 teams in the bracket 1.0, I guess. Indiana, Ohio State, Oregon, and Penn State from the Big Ten. Tennessee, Georgia, Alabama, and Texas, who in this bracket are matched up against each other. Texas number 6, Alabama number 11. Then you've got, we mentioned Boise, BYU, Miami out of the ACC, and Notre Dame. So those are your 12 right now. There's the bracket. We will tune back in next Wednesday to see what, this weekend's games do to that. And this LSU Alabama game in Baton Rouge this weekend could obviously have an impact on that. This is virtually an elimination game. If Alabama drops this one after having already lost to both Vanderbilt and Tennessee, it's tough to imagine a three loss team getting into this, isn't it?
Yeah, it feels like the loser of this one's probably going bye-bye. Maybe more so, more so in my opinion, Alabama, because they definitely would have 3 losses. LSU, in classic LSU fashion, even if they drop this one, it would be their 3rd, but only their 2nd conference loss.
Mm-hmm.
And who the heck knows? There is, like, I gave you guys the new or the old doomsday scenario where there was a chance that LSU and Texas A&M could have met in the title game, even though Georgia and Texas both would have been sitting there with just 1 loss. I think there's a new crazy scenario where if Texas loses to Florida later this year, that like 8 teams could be sitting there with 2 conference losses. And then you get into, we joked a couple months ago about the last tiebreaker being basically a coin flip. I don't think we would still get to the coin flip, but things could get crazy. So LSU, not completely done and dusted, I think, if they lose this game. But Alabama, on the other hand, with 3 conference losses, it is really, really almost sayonara time for those guys at that point.
You refer to this Florida-Texas game as later this year, like later, like in
weekend?
3 days.
Yeah. I had a feeling that it was either this weekend or next weekend. And so, I mean, obviously, you think of Florida with their 3rd string QB, you don't imagine a guy from Yale coming in and maybe beating Texas, but crazier things have happened
in Austin.
In Austin, talk about a legendary deal if they were to pull that off. So it's going to be interesting. You mentioned Notre Dame too. They're ranked number 10. They'll have a chance to pick up a big win versus Army. They've already beaten Louisville, but they also are sitting there. They obviously by far have the worst loss of anybody with that home loss to Northern Illinois. But it seems like if they keep winning, they're going to be in pretty good shape. And then if they were to tumble, SMU, who's playing really great, and they'll have a chance to maybe play Miami. That will be an electric ACC title game. A lot of intrigue still to play, especially with Ole Miss and Georgia still to come as well.
Ole Miss and Georgia this weekend as well. Yeah, Georgia trying to hang on, and they can. I don't know if either of these teams can afford another loss. Probably Georgia easier than Ole Miss, but I'm not sure that either of them can.
Yeah, again, it feels like if Ole Miss takes this one, they're definitely, or takes a loss, they're definitely, relegated back to the lesser bowl territory. This one's going to be fascinating for me, right? Because we saw Alabama blow the doors off Georgia in the first half. And then obviously they righted the ship and turned things around. And then we also saw Georgia play bully ball versus Texas, who was undefeated and, number 1 in the country at the time. So this is going to be an interesting game. I don't know that Ole Miss has come around full circle enough, but over the last 2 or 3 weeks, it feels like they put some of their worst days behind them. And this will be a fascinating game coming up this weekend.
And Georgia certainly not out of the woods because they got Tennessee coming to Sanford Stadium next weekend.
Yeah, talk about a tough back-to-back. So much, we talk about teams that the scheduling, we focus so much on who plays who and who doesn't play who. But a lot of times it comes down to, that bye week is a huge game changer for a lot of teams. But also on the other side, playing teams back-to-back is really tough. So if Georgia, even if they survive, to your point, they have a tough one getting ready to go against a very physical defensive front in Tennessee as well.
Yeah. Real quick, wanted to mention Vanderbilt sitting at 6-3. That is their best start since 1982, when they also got off to a 6-3 start. Finished up 7-4 with a loss in the Hall of Fame Bowl to Air Force. And what's kind of funny about that 6-3 start back in 82, they improved to 6-3 with a 45-0 win the second weekend in November against Virginia Tech.
Yeah, and Vanderbilt, the committee had a chance to make history, obviously. We've already talked about Vanderbilt and being in and out and back in the AP poll. Would have been neat to see them in there in these playoff rankings. But their schedule is pretty wild. They have South Carolina, as we mentioned, this week at home, which is going to be an absolute slugfest, I think, between two teams that are playing pretty well right now. They get a bye week, but then they go to LSU, and then they host Tennessee. If Vanderbilt runs the table, I still think, even with 3 losses, they're probably on the outside looking in. You're probably thinking, man, if we had 1 or 2 plays go a different way, we're probably maybe thinking about flirting with a playoff berth. But considering their schedule is so tough down the stretch, they'll have a chance to, I think, climb these rankings. And, a top 6 finish for them is certainly in play, it seems like, in the SEC, which is in the deepest SEC we've ever seen. That's mind-blowing, right?
It really is. A top 6 in a 16-team Southeastern Conference. Yeah. Hats off to those guys. They've done a great job. Hour number 1 of Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, is in the books. When we return to the Lee Company studios for hour number 2, we'll jump into the grab bag, see what we can come up with. Stay tuned after this.
Nashville's Nutcracker returns to TPAC this December, presented by Nashville Ballet. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets at NashvilleBallet.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Vilay Saisuka, CEO and founder of Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee, here in Murfreesboro. We offer foot and ankle care from ingrown toenails to diabetic foot wounds. We also fix ankle fractures and things like that.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Custom Stone Handler supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with River Stone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe that the measure of any person or company is how they treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStonehandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, starts right now. That's Wade Neely. I'm Maurice Patton. We're coming to you from the Lee Company studios of our respective homes. And before we get away from college football, just wanted to mention, Clemson is number 23 in these first college football playoff rankings that were announced yesterday, as the struggles just continue for the Tigers and their coach following that loss to Louisville over the weekend. Dabo almost didn't get to vote yesterday.
Oh,
and yeah, he said you dropped to 6-2. You're 5-1 in the conference, and they done shipped me off. They done voted me out of the state. Apparently, his son William voted early, and so Dabo, who is William Sr., I guess, was initially unable to vote because they crossed things up between him and Will, but he was able to submit a paper ballot, and the issue is to be resolved later this week, I guess, with the local voting commission. But yeah, tough stretch for Dabo.
Man, it is Wild and Wacky Wednesday, and that's like a episode of Curb Your Enthusiasm, a situation where, imagine if it's a local race, nationally probably, and statewide maybe not as much, but imagine if you're a councilman or a councilwoman, and you're running for re-election or election, and you lose by one vote, and Dabo costs you because of an error at the poll. That's really kind of only Dabo or only Larry David. And, like I said, it's kind of a walking Curb Your Enthusiasm episode right there.
The Titans continue to kind of reconfigure their personnel with the losses of Lloyd Cushenberry and Quandre Diggs, both going on IR with injuries coming out of this past weekend. The Titans have signed former Buffalo safety Mike Edwards. Edwards has played in the league for 6 years, drafted out of Kentucky by Tampa Bay, spent 4 years with the Bucks, and played with the Bills 3 games after spending last year with the Chiefs. So basically, the Titans sent DeAndre Hopkins to Kansas City and got Mike Edwards,
who lost his job to a dead man earlier this year, with Hamlin coming in and replacing him. So Edwards, Hamlin, by the way, with an interception versus the Titans earlier this year. I meant to mention that a couple weeks ago.
It is. I think that was his first interception.
I believe that is correct. So the Titans are trying to, just piece together. And it's interesting. I was listening to a national podcast earlier this week, and everybody is still, it sounds like across the league, I think everybody realizes, the Titans aren't great, but they still have, especially on defense, a lot of things that are noteworthy. And so there's still, in that building, a lot of folks that are playing to the best of their ability. And they seem like a prime candidate for a team that later in the season, I think the Bengals come to town later this year. Somebody that desperately kind of needs a win might, find themselves taking a random loss to the Titans. So at least kind of plugging some holes, it looks like, defensively there.
Yeah, and you talk about this defense, and they did not move Arden Key. They did not move Sebastian Joseph Day, at the deadline yesterday. So that, like you said, that defense in particular is still pretty salty over there. So, enter at your own peril. Speaking of Titan opponents, Trevor Lawrence may miss this weekend's matchup against the Vikings. Apparently, he's got a shoulder situation going on. So, he could be out as Jacksonville tries to avoid an 0-3 skid.
Man,
Doug Peterson terms it an upper body injury. Hats off to to Joe Sullivan, but ESPN is reporting that it is a non-throwing shoulder injury, but still, it sounds like it may be enough to keep him sidelined.
The way he's been erratic this year. You know, he's thrown for over 2,000 yards, but a lot of those yards and a lot of his 11 touchdowns feel like they've come when the Jags are getting blown out. So he is, undoubtedly the best probably in your quarterback room there, but, not a lot to cheer for the Jags, and especially considering they just gave him all that money this offseason.
Yeah, I would imagine that's one of the more galling aspects of that whole situation. They gave him all that money and, 11 touchdowns and 6 picks, like you said. That quarterback room just got a little more crowded because Jacksonville just re-signed former Battleground Academy standout C.J. Beathard. He had been on the Dolphins practice squad since Jacksonville cut him at the end of the preseason. He had been in Jacksonville for the past 3 years as Lawrence's backup before they picked up Mac Jones. And so it would be Jones and then Beathard should Lawrence not be able to go this weekend against Minnesota. But certainly something to keep an eye on between the Jags being a AFC South foe and the prospect of former high school standout from the area, possibly getting on the field for Jacksonville against the Vikings. So keep an eye on that. Wade, this was kind of anticipated since Devontae Adams got to the Jets. Mike Williams moved yesterday. No, where he moved to wasn't necessarily anticipated, but he's gone to Pittsburgh. The Steelers trying to upgrade at the receiver position.
Yeah, not only with Adams coming in, but a couple of weeks ago when he had that big miscommunication on the route with Rodgers, and Rodgers, throws it where he's anticipating Williams, and Williams is in a different zip code. And that basically is the game-sealing interception. We talked about Rodgers being the shadow GM. Felt like from that moment on that Mike Williams' days in New York were limited. So
it's on borrowed time, huh?
Yeah, it sure felt like it. I would imagine the Steelers. The Steelers are just such a quirky team. Their defense is elite, but their offense is kind of, all over the place, but it somehow gets the job done more often than not. Wouldn't be shocked to, see him fill a little bit of a serviceable role there for a team that kind of still needs a little bit of help in terms of their receiving core.
Yeah, Williams was released by the Chargers over the offseason. Pittsburgh made a run at him, but he visited the Jets before he got to Pittsburgh and never got to Pittsburgh. So now, he and George Pickens on the outside. And speaking of former area prep stars, Van Jefferson from Ravenwood in the slot for Pittsburgh. So now they are putting together some weapons to let Russ cook up in Pittsburgh.
Yeah. The more options, the better. And, it doesn't sound like they gave a lot. The Jets, if you believe everything that I kind of just, somewhat jokingly said a moment ago, though, in theory, the Jets kind of don't want him in the locker room at that point, or at least Rodgers doesn't. And he is the locker room basically for that franchise at the moment. So, addition by subtraction, I suppose, if you're into that for New York. But I think this could be a decent, sneaky little pickup there for the Steelers.
Yeah, and the Jets got a number 5th round pick next year in exchange for Williams. Steelers trading picks left and right because they picked up defensive end Preston Smith from the Packers at the deadline yesterday as well, sending a 7th rounder for next year to Green Bay in exchange for the 31-year-old 10-year NFL veteran. Former number 2 pick out of Mississippi State for Washington. 430 career tackles, 71 for a loss over 10 years, 68 and a half career sacks. So he and TJ Watt gonna give some folks some problems, sounds like.
Steelers right now, they're still they're in first place as it sits right now in the AFC North. Still haven't played Baltimore either time. And they have a pretty challenging little stretch in their schedule. They got the Commanders this week and then at home to the Ravens next week. So they're kind of loading up. But as it sits right now, they technically are the 3 seed. Don't know that they'll be able to hang on to win the division, a loaded division outside of Cleveland. But, kind of rallying the troops a little bit and trying to see what can happen. They're sitting there at 6-2.
News out of the general managers meetings out at San Antonio yesterday that's a little disappointing, I guess, if you're a Braves fan. Alex Anthopoulos told media out there that Ronald Acuna Jr. and Spencer Strider are likely to not be back in time for the season opener at San Diego on March 27th. Acuna trying to come back from a torn left ACL at the end of May, had surgery to repair that on June 6th. Strider trying to come back from elbow issues that he had addressed with surgery on April 12th. I think with both guys, I don't think it's significant time, but I think we're confident that opening day is not realistic for them. Once we get to spring, you get to the beginning of February, you'll have a much better idea on timelines. We're planning that they will not be part of the opening day roster. And how soon after that, we'll know more as we get deeper into the offseason. So don't look for Acuna or Strider on opening day.
And no need to rush them back.
No, because once you get them back, you want them to be back.
Yeah.
So if it's mid-April, if it's late April, if it's May, we'll just have to piece something together and hope that once they do get back, they are back and that you can kind of take off from there. So we'll see how that goes as the offseason continues for the Braves. Meanwhile, Texas may have hired Bruce Bochy's successor in former National League Manager of the Year, Skip Schumacher, who has joined the Rangers front office as a senior advisor to GM Chris Young. The Rangers also hired ex-Miami Marlins bench coach Luis Urrieta, I guess. Schumacher and Urrieta had been together in Miami. Again, obviously, Schumacher was the manager of the year 2 years ago, before the Marlins decided to not exercise his option, and then he left at the end of this past year. So that's a pretty smooth move on the Rangers' part if that is the way it plays out. Bochy is 69. He has a 3-year contract that expires at the end of the 2025 season and has said that he's not interested in coaching deep into his 70s. So, if you can secure the next guy,
yeah,
why not?
Yep, sooner than later. Succession plan, it sounds like.
It does indeed. There were 3 managerial vacancies at the end of the 24 season. Miami, Cincinnati, and the White Sox. The White Sox just hired Will Venable. We talked about that last week. Cincinnati hired Tito Francona not long after the season ended because they had dismissed David Bell during the year. So the only spot still open is, of course, the Marlins. which just kind of makes sense given that franchise and how oddly things go for them. We talked during the rundown about UT women's 101-53 win over Samford last night in Kim Caldwell's debut. It was a good game in that, you know, the Lady Vol fans got to meet the team. 7 players made their debuts last night for UT, including Z Spearman, who scored 25 points, the second most ever in a UT women's basketball debut. Yeah, they are definitely a new look squad under Kim Caldwell. They went deep into the transfer portal. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 transfers and a redshirt freshman made their debuts last night. Those 7 scored a total of 73 points with 24 boards. So
good win for them. Good start to Coach Caldwell's tenure. But loading up their release, I was blown away by this. Just the 6th time in Lady Vol history they've broken 100 points. That feels like an awfully low number considering how dominant they were at various points in their program's history to me, right?
It really does. That's You would have thought with some of the teams that they have had and some of the teams that they have played that they would have done that more often. Yeah.
Yeah, like I'm thinking, Coach Pat Summitt's heyday, and you play Samford. You're telling me they didn't score? I mean, and I'm sure there were reasons that probably didn't get to 100, probably more on the gracious side of things than anything. But just kind of blows my mind that, this was only the 6th time they've gone over 100, but a great win, a lot of depth. And like you said, a chance for the Big Orange fans to see their new look Lady Vols.
Absolutely. Let's take a break here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we return to the Lee Company studios, we'll be joined by our NASCAR expert, Heather Williams of WCYB TV out of Johnson City. Stay tuned after this.
Hi, I'm Riley, a certified physician associate here at Premier Foot and Ankle Centers of Tennessee. We have a couple locations, Murfreesboro, McMinnville, as well as Franklin. We treat people of all ages. We're excited to get you back on your feet and hope we can help you today.
Call us today to schedule an appointment. We look forward to seeing you.
Because here at Premier Foot and Ankle, we believe that
the journey begins with happy feet.
He shoots, and he scores!
Whether you're an athlete or a weekend warrior, when it comes to your performance, don't settle for anything less than excellence. We're proud to announce that Mid-Tennessee Bone and Joint Clinic is now Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, where we are redefining sports medicine and orthopedics. Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance's team of expert sports medicine physicians understands the unique demands of your body. TOA Columbia specializes in personalized orthopedic care, offering state-of-the-art treatments for everything from sports injuries to joint replacements. Learn more at toacolumbia.com.
With Lee Company technology, the best handymen are hands-off. Lee Company techs have been using visual findings and other smart technology tools for years to add transparency and virtually take customers along. You see what we see, whether we're in a crawl space or on a roof. With Lee Company, technology helps us help you, no matter what's happening in the world or at your house.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy, zioneagles.org or 931-388-5731. You can schedule your appointment. Go tour their campus. It is beautiful over there, and you're definitely going to want to see it. Again, it's zioneagles.org. Give them a call, 931-388-5731, and schedule your tour today.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Wacky Wednesday continues here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. Wade Neely will be rejoining us momentarily, but we're going to get into some NASCAR talk with our NASCAR analyst, Heather Williams of WCYB TV out of Johnson City. Heather, happy Wednesday.
Happy Wednesday, Mo. I love when it's just you and me talking NASCAR.
I'm sure you do, because one of us knows everything and the other one knows nothing. But yeah.
No, you ask honest questions that non-NASCAR fans. I mean, I love answering the technical stuff that Wade or whoever your co-host brings, but I sometimes enjoy just the conversation that the average non-NASCAR fan can like learn more about NASCAR. So I actually do really enjoy when it's just you and I, because I get to speak to that audience a little bit more.
Well, good. I'm glad it works out well. What did you like about, Blaney winning at Martinsville this weekend?
I mean, I liked Ryan Blaney, and it was a really good race. He drove a fantastic race, but honestly, I didn't really even get to enjoy any of it because the chaos that ensued behind him. I swear every time I go to the racetrack, there's chaos. I mean, I say I love chaos, but the amount of running around that I had to do chasing all the primary players in the
Bell Byron situation,
yes, was crazy. So good for Ryan. We haven't had a repeat champion since Jimmy Johnson won 5 in a row. So it's great to see that's alive, because that's kind of a fun storyline going into the week. And Ryan's a great guy. All 4 of the guys that are in championship 4 are good guys, but the drama was something else.
Take us through a little bit of that. I mean, I heard a little bit about it, but so Bell kind of just went hell bent for leather late and just couldn't quite get there, or what?
Well, so what happened? What happened was
there we go.
Yeah, that was for you specifically, Mo. Christopher Bell and William Byron were separated by 1 point in the championship. Then there was a little bit of like manufacturer tomfoolery going on. You had the
not tomfoolery.
Yeah, tomfoolery.
Not jackassery. Okay.
Yes,
right.
for sure.
Right.
You had the number 1 of Ross Chastain and the number 3 of Austin Dillon basically doing a rolling brigade, blocking anyone from being able to pass William Byron. They were running 2 and sometimes 3 or 4 wide in this Chevy group so that nobody could get around Byron to drop him back another point.
Sounds like roller derby.
Yeah, basically, yeah, it was a lot like that. Then you had running a lap down Christopher Bell and Bubba Wallace, and Bubba Wallace basically said, "Oh, I have a flat tire. I have to go so much slower," because Wallace was literally the only other car a lap down that Bell could pass. So going into the final corner, Bubba Wallace slowed down for his flat tire. Christopher Bell went around it, but Christopher got so excited he hit the wall. I don't think he did this part on purpose. Rode the wall like Ross Chastain, which is now illegal in NASCAR. So then when the race ended, Bell was in, Byron was out. But NASCAR reviewed it because of the wall ride. We all stood there for 30 minutes, staring at William Byron and Christopher Bell in complete agony over what's going on. And then NASCAR disqualified Christopher Bell, technically they knocked him to the last car on the one lap down cars. So he went from being in by 1 point to out by 7 points, I think it was. And so Bell out, Byron in, and that's your championship 4. And then as a result of the other shenanigans that went on between the other drivers, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, and Austin Dillon all were fined. Their crew chiefs were suspended, and one member of their executive team was suspended for the final race of the year.
Goodness gracious.
Oh, yeah, there was a lot going on. It was wild.
Well, clearly there was a lot going on because we have had tomfoolery and shenanigans in the same segment, and I don't know that we here at Main Street Sports Today have ever had that. So this was some serious stuff going on at Martinsville. But so your championship 4 heading to Phoenix are Blaney, Joey Logano, Tyler Reddick, and William Byron.
Yes, and I'll just say, in the spirit of the absolute chaos that has been this season, it seems only right that the 45 should win the championship and have the team that's suing NASCAR in victory lane hoisting the championship trophy. It's the only way the season can end.
Hey, I'm here for it.
But you're right, Wade. That's the only way the season can end, is with something just as ridiculous as Steve Phelps having to hand the championship trophy to Denny Hamlin and Michael Jordan in the middle of a lawsuit. A pretty contentious lawsuit, because they were in court this week, and some stuff came out that was, they're not friends.
Yeah, it's NASCAR is not as what's the word I'm looking for? Their script writers are not as compelling. Sometimes they leave a few holes, unlike the NFL and NBA, which we all know are scripted. But NASCAR kind of forgets these little loopholes. So yeah, I could see that scenario perfectly unfolding.
Yeah, they're not that buttoned up.
They're not that buttoned up, and in a way, it feels like obviously it's a negative look in many aspects, but in a weird, sadistic way, I think NASCAR deep down probably likes the drama sometimes in that regard.
Oh, they have to love chaos. When I was standing outside the NASCAR hauler on Saturday night waiting to talk to the NASCAR executives about what happened with Christopher Bell, the beat writers that were there every week, a couple of them snapped pictures outside the hauler and posted them on Facebook and said, "We live here now." Because it feels like they're at the hauler every week talking to NASCAR executives about the crazy, wild, insane ruling thing that went on, whatever. Every week there's something. So it's NFL refs get a lot of guff, and baseball refs get a lot of guff. I'm sure basketball does too, but I don't really watch that much basketball. It's been a rough year for the NASCAR officiating team. It's been a rough year. Now, some of that is teams putting them in those positions. The Chevy's running 8 wide down the backstretch of Martinsville so that nobody could pass William Byron. That wasn't NASCAR. That was the Chevys putting NASCAR in a position where they had to do something. But it's been a lot. There's just been so much. That's why you never say never in anything. I've seen so many things that in 20 years of covering NASCAR, I hadn't seen up to this point this season. It's been wild.
Forgive a dumb question, but other than, just pride and obviously, is there an increased purse for anybody that is not in the Final Four, or anybody that wins? I guess, what are the stakes other than spoiler and, the notoriety for anybody not racing for the championship to win this thing this weekend?
Sure. I mean, obviously, if you win the race, you get the winner's purse of winning the race. But every points position pays more than the one below it. So, I mean, and that's why the points that were docked from specifically Bubba, but Bubba and Ross probably, Austin was he's kind of in a situation where he was probably going to finish far enough back that it didn't make a significant difference. But Bubba and Ross are back there racing in that 16 to 20 group. And there's a significant difference between finishing 17th in the points and finishing 21st. So, having the point stock that they had for the goofiness that went on at Martinsville, that hurts. That's a lot of money out of their pocket. But the manufacturers provide so much money and support. It's almost completely impossible to be a high-level competitive team without manufacturer support, A-tier manufacturer support, because In the Toyota camp, this is part of the reason why Legacy Motor Club switched to Toyota. In the Toyota camp, there aren't that many cars. They are all A-level. They all get the exact same amount. But like in the Chevy camp, you could be an A-level team, which would be, you know, your Hendrick, your Childress, and your Trackhouse type teams. I'm forgetting somebody. Hendrick, Childress, Trackhouse. Anyway, you could be that level team, or you can be a B-level team, which might be Spire or whatever. And there's a difference between the amount of information and sim time and all those things you get between being an A-level team and a B-level team. And I bring this up because it puts so much pressure. Austin Dillon, William Byron is nothing to Austin Dillon. I mean, they might be friends, but they're not teammates. There's nothing in that relationship. The reason that he and Ross Chastain were fighting so hard to get him into the championship for is because they want to stay on the good graces of Chevy. They want a Chevy and not a Toyota. So there's so much pressure on these teams by the manufacturers to make sure that they're keeping other manufacturers up. Like, just, if it had been William Byron and Kyle Larson fighting for that final spot, none of this would have gone on because it's going to be a Chevy and nobody cares. But that's where the real issue is, I think, is, they kind of reel in those manufacturers a little bit.
Other dumb question. Speaking of manufacturers, I'm thinking constructors over in F1. Is that the equivalent, the manufacturers championship? And I guess if so, is that still up for grabs? And how does that get determined at the end here this weekend?
I don't think it is this year. I think I would have to go look at the points for sure. But generally, Chevy wins that. Sometimes Ford does. Toyota doesn't have enough teams really to be able to win that. It is a big deal. I mean, they do. I think Ford won it last year. They do take a lot of pride in that, but it's more about the championship that's the most important. The one that pays the most money is actually the Owners' Championship. We all talk about the Drivers' Championship, but the Owners' Championship is the one that pays the most money and the one that is the most valued inside the garage area. So it does play a part, but what they really want is just any Toyota, any Chevy, any Ford from a manufacturer to win the championship. That was a really big deal last year. Ford swept all 3 championships in all the major series. And that was a big, big deal for them.
It makes sense. And I ended up on the Wikipedia here looking at it. And I love the idea that you go back Oldsmobile and, Mercury. I wish I could get
Pontiacs for a while.
Yeah, give me a Pontiac winner. Would be kind of fun. It's fun looking. Yeah, Buick with 9 total wins to their credit on this Wikipedia here. So kind of a fun little stroll down memory lane.
Yeah, there's been there's been some great cars in NASCAR. Just completely off topic. I mean, you look up the old Superbirds in NASCAR. Gosh, those were good looking cars.
Heather Williams of WCYB TV out of Johnson City joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, talking a little NASCAR. So we are now off to Phoenix with the Championship 4 and with everybody else trying to spoil. But, and I know you don't like picking winners, but based on what you've seen to this point, is this anybody's race, do you think? Or
sure. Based on the way the season's gone, it's anyone's race. I think it's fascinating that there are 2 Penske cars. I mean, I would think that Penske would have and Penske's won the last 2 championships between these 2 drivers. Joey won 2 years ago. Ryan Blaney won last year. They're really good when it gets to this championship race. So it really, from like a betting standpoint, would be hard to go against one of those Penske cars because they are very good at this stage, and they've both been here before. William Byron was in the championship 4 last year. Didn't really have a great championship race at Phoenix, but he is very good at Phoenix. And then this is Tyler Reddick's first trip to the championship 4. But all 4 of these teams know how to get around Phoenix. They're all very good at Phoenix. I think it's a level playing field from that perspective. I think there's probably a little bit of edge again to the Penske cars and to Tyler Reddick's team because they knew that they were going to be in Phoenix prior to this week. So they've had a little extra time to work on their cars. But then you also say, okay, but now at Hendrick Motorsports, they've got the power of all those 4 great teams working on the William Byron car this week. I mean, everybody is contributing at Hendrick Motorsports to make William Byron a better team. Everybody in the Toyota camp is contributing to make Tyler Reddick a driver better car this week, because they have such a close alliance, specifically with Joe Gibbs Racing Technical Alliance. So I don't know. It would be really hard to handicap. And also because of the randomness, right? The 4 drivers in the championship were the 4 drivers I said were going to be out of the championship when you maybe picked 3 weeks ago. So it is completely just a wild season. And I think Phoenix is going to be really intriguing, which honestly it's going to need to be, because as a racetrack, Phoenix is kind of a bad racetrack. It's kind of a boring racetrack. And let me off that with kind of a asterisk. The craziness that went away from Martinsville last week took away from, that was the best Martinsville race we've probably seen in the next gen era, with the ability to pass, with the way that the racing was, with kind of the different strategies, the up and down, the tire wear. They brought a new tire that wore almost perfectly the way that they wanted to, but nobody is talking about any of that because of the craziness. So there is a potential for Phoenix to be a good race, but based on the history of the season, there's more of a potential for all insanity to break loose, because that's what this season has been.
I'm here for that. And I wouldn't be surprised if I asked you last week, if the 4 drivers don't finish maybe even near the top of the pack, but they kind of are all jumbled up in the middle, and then Kyle Larson wins, and we're all, just kind of scratching our head like, well, is this the right format? It just feels like anything is in play this weekend.
Well, yeah, especially since Kyle Larson has twice as many wins as anyone in the championship 4, and he's not in the championship 4.
Right.
But I mean, Kyle Larson kind of did that to himself by skipping a race. He prioritized Indy. He lost the whole race, so he lost the points. If he goes to Charlotte and wins, he gets those bonus points that carry out throughout the playoffs. Maybe he makes it, right? He has a little bit more of a cushion. So, they kind of did that a little bit to themselves. Now, I'm not defending this format. I like the idea of a playoff, but I kind of wish they would go back to the old chase for the championship. I think that's a better playoff format than what we've landed on now. But that's neither here nor there. I do like the idea of having some intrigue in this championship race, which prior to the chase for the championship, sometimes we had the champion wrapped up 2 weeks before the season was over. Well, why am I watching at that point?
Right.
So I do think we need some sort of playoff system, but this one's, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if it's it. If you're keeping out a guy that has 6 wins is not in the championship. That's just hard to. But I mean, it happens, I guess, all the time in regular sports, right? I mean, wild card teams make it to the playoffs. The Rangers won the World Series 2 years ago. They were even close to the best team in baseball. So it's a little, I don't know. I'm a little conflicted on that.
Yeah, that's my weird feeling is, maybe we don't get a great finish from those 4, and then somebody like Larson wins the race, and you kind of get a little bit of both worlds. You get to see the, pound for pound best driver winning the race, and then you're like, it adds just another layer of drama and intrigue to kind of go ahead and get you talking about what they maybe should or shouldn't change for next year.
Yeah. You've watched enough of this year and followed long enough to know that something weird's going to happen at Phoenix. It's inevitable. If it doesn't, it's almost going to feel like a letdown if something weird doesn't happen.
I was just going to ask you, if it's not one of the championship 4 winning this, who is it? But I mean, as long as Kyle Larson is running and he's not in the championship 4, I would imagine he would be the favorite, right?
I would actually say if the championship team driver doesn't win it, I actually think it might be Christopher Bell. Based on what happened last week, how he didn't get into the playoffs, based on how good he is at Phoenix. Everybody was saying he won Phoenix in the spring, that if he got into the championship 4, he was going to be the hands down favorite because he is so good at Phoenix. And so I actually think that if one of the championship 4 doesn't win, that the favorite would probably be Christopher Bell, because he's going to come to Phoenix mad just based on how everything went down last week in Martinsville.
There you go. Oh, Got to ask you, how you liking DeAndre Hopkins, and how did you like the Remember the Titans Selly the other night?
Loving it. I thank my friends in Middle Tennessee every week for sending him our way. I didn't get to see the game, actually, because East Tennessee State, for some reason, decided they need to play their opening night of basketball on Monday night. So
How dare they? Yeah,
I know, right? How could they do that? I did see it on social media, so I knew what it was when I saw it. Like, I didn't have to guess. I did think it was I thought it was a cool thing to do. I don't know. How was that received in Middle Tennessee? Did you take it? Because I took it as he was like thanking the Titans for not sending him off to, the Raiders or somebody terrible,
Right.
and putting him on a contender.
I kind of took that out of it. Not everybody did.
Okay. Just curious what the reaction was.
Yeah.
That's how I interpreted it when I saw it was, thank you, Titans Nation, for putting me in this good situation. But I could also see where people might not take it that way.
Exactly.
And Hopkins has kind of came out and said, hey, it was all love.
Yeah, when I've heard the interviews,
he's glad to be in Kansas City, but he's got love for where he was at.
Yeah, when I've heard the interviews, because I listen to obviously a lot of content out of Kansas City on the Chiefs. Every interview I've heard from him, he's been very complimentary of the Titans organization. Like he enjoyed his time in Nashville. He just really enjoys having a chance to win a Super Bowl. I mean, he's getting up to the point in his career at his age that, those opportunities are not going to be around for very much longer. So I've never heard him say a bad thing about the Titans in the Kansas City media, for what that's worth.
There we go.
Yeah.
Heather Williams of WCYB TV out of Johnson City joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, talking a little NASCAR as she typically does on Wednesdays. I guess you're not going to Phoenix, right?
Oh, gosh, I wish I was, but I will not. I will be at the Champions Banquet in 2 weeks, which is actually moved, as you know, out of Nashville this year and back into Charlotte. So I will be going to that.
That's unfortunate. Now, is that on Wednesday? Do I remember that being on Wednesdays previously?
It's been on Wednesdays and Thursdays have been the celebrations, but this year it's actually going to be on Friday. The 22nd-ish or whatever that Friday is, in Charlotte.
Okay. All right. So you'll be available next Wednesday then, right?
I will be available. I should be available. I never want to say 100% because, catastrophic flooding happens and I'm, otherwise, or, a football coach gets fired, although our football coach is pretty good at East Tennessee State. So I don't think that's going to happen, but, you never say never. Never say never.
Exactly. Well, we look forward to hopefully seeing you next Wednesday. We appreciate you taking some time with us, and be safe.
Yep. Look forward to talking about Champion next week.
That'll work.
Thank you.
We'll talk to you. When we come back to the Lee Company Studios here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, it'll be the final segment of the show. It'll be wild and wacky. Stay tuned after this.
So, you want to be a part of the Busy Bee team, huh? Well, how do you see yourself fitting into the organization? Oh, I get it. You want to be a weather bee.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new, handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
It's the final segment of Wild and Wacky Wednesday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That means it's time for Wild and Wacky Wednesday, as Wade and I bring you some of the weirdest, wildest, and wackiest news from across the globe. And we will start with a late addition to the roster. Wade, was this you?
Yeah, man. We talk about international incidents and we talk about weather a lot, but I don't know that you've ever heard of a lightning strike hitting the field of play as coming out of Peru. There was a soccer match on Sunday as two teams got together in Huayncao. Hopefully I got that right.
You got closer than I would have.
Been to Peru, haven't been to Huayncao, but so lightning strikes, and in 22 minutes of game time, basically lightning strikes and kills a player instantly on the field. Fans obviously immediately dispersed. 7 other players were near the guy that was killed, and all heck broke loose. And so there was even a report that 30 cows were near the stadium, kind of, I guess, a little bit outside the stadium, and a tree that they were hiding underneath got nailed. So, I mean, it was kind of a wild situation. But, so when you're at a game and you get into a weather delay, more often than not, everybody's angry and ticked about, things. But in Peru, lightning strikes and, kills Hugo de la Cruz instantly on the spot.
Authorities believe that the bracelet he was wearing possibly contributed to him being struck, referring to the bracelet as a magnet. And apparently there are photos that show the scorch marks from the strike. That's tragic. And you hear of these type things, but goodness gracious, that's just, it's nothing to mess with. And like you said, when we have these lightning delays, people typically get upset about having to, leave the field or leave the stands or whatever, but it's inconvenient, but getting struck by lightning is pretty inconvenient as well. So
no, and apparently this happened either in the exact location or at a very nearby facility several years ago. And a guy was struck. He was a 21-year-old. He was struck by lightning, sent to the hospital with second-degree burns. And, I'm not going to risk this, obviously, but I'm just going to go ahead and say, if I get struck by lightning and live, you can't tell me anything. And you are going to hear about it at any point in time. So if anybody rolls up on me, gives me any guff, I'm like, yo, dude, you really want to try me, man? I got struck by lightning and lived. I mean,
and I'm here. Yeah. Bring it. That's crazy. We have talked on this show about the Fat Bear Week up in Alaska and the Fat Bear Beauty Contest. We have talked about the Bat Beauty Contest on this show. Well, apparently there is now an online cuteness contest being conducted by the Edinburgh Zoo between a couple of pygmy hippos. Haggis is the newborn pygmy hippo at the Edinburgh Zoo, and Mudang became a viral sensation from a zoo in Thailand this summer. And so there is a website contest going on between those two to determine which of the pygmy hippos is the cuter. Later, though, the zoo said in a post, "We were wrong to pit Haggis and Mudang against each other. There is space in this world for two beautiful pygmy hippo divas, and we should celebrate them all." So,
I mean, that's where I go with that. It's like you're trying to step on Mudang's block, and there's already the market is flooded with sweatshirts and Christmas ornaments. Mudang has already got this thing on lock. So I feel like as cute as Haggis is, it kind of feels a little forced to me.
Which happens. I think they were coming from a good place. They were trying to raise awareness regarding pygmy hippos. There are only 2,500 of them in the wild in West Africa, and they are threatened by, poaching and the loss of their habitats. So, the Royal Zoological Society of Scotland, I think again, I think they were coming from a good place, but I don't disagree with you. There's room for more than one cute pygmy hippo. So let's just celebrate them all.
I'm with you there. Let's celebrate them all. No need to get into a contest with these things because they're all
no hateration, holleration.
No.
In this dancery. Speaking of the Bat Beauty contest,
yes,
it was won by Harry Potter. A hoary bat with a feisty personality who defeated Lestat, the western small-footed bat from Idaho, in the final round of that Bat Beauty contest put on by the Bureau of Land Management. It's the third year in a row that a bat from Oregon has won the contest. Last year, William Shakespeare won it.
Yeah.
And in 2022, a bat named Barbara, from both these from Southern Oregon, by the way. So again, the Bureau of Land Management has held this competition since 2019 to raise awareness about bats and their ecological importance. So,
I dissed on the contest last week, but I will give some credit. Harry Potter is he's a bit of a cutie,
as bats go.
Yes.
And apparently they are more harmless than it would seem. So that's a good thing, because they certainly seem a little intimidating. Staying in the animal realm, in New York State, apparently there is an IG famous squirrel named Peanut who has been seized by state authorities during a raid. Peanut and a raccoon named Fred were both among, were picked up by officers from the state's Department of Environmental Conservation. The DEC came to my house and raided my house without a search warrant to find a squirrel, said Mark Longo of Pine City, Pennsylvania. I'm sorry, Pine City, New York, near the Pennsylvania border. I was treated as if I was a drug dealer and they were going for drugs and guns. So authorities took Peanut, Fred. Peanut has amassed hundreds of thousands of viewers on IG, TikTok, and other platforms over 7 years. Apparently, there were multiple reports from the public about the potentially unsafe housing of wildlife that could carry rabies and the illegal keeping of wildlife as pets. This guy runs an animal refuge. So, I don't know. He fears that Peanut has been put down. I don't know if Peanut is alive. I don't know where he is. And officials with the department would not respond to questions. The guy said he saw Peanut's mother get hit by a car in New York City, which left Peanut an orphan. He brought Peanut home, cared for him for 8 months before trying to release him into the great outdoors. A day and a half later, I found him sitting on my porch, missing half of his tail with his bone sticking out. So I guess he's kept him ever since.
Yeah, that reminds me of Seinfeld when George, he hits the squirrel and they have to order a series of small, tiny instruments to repair. So the other thing too, and it sounds like this is correct based on the quotes we got.
Wait,
Yes.
We got to go. See y'all tomorrow at 2.
We out.
Yeah.